Hello, hello. Welcome, Coffee Buzz Friday 3. All right, we have the answer, by the way. This is no longer going to be called a judge stick. Shout out to my longest standing friend, childhood best buddy, Paul Greenwood, a lawyer. So, the gavel. We have made it. We are here to the gavel. Shout out to Paulie. He gave me some grief about it. And I said this to him. I said, I'm pretty sure the first episode I ever did, I'm pretty confident I had said, I couldn't remember what it was called. I easily could have looked it up, but I was seeking some advice and couldn't have been a better guy than Paul to lay it on me. So let's get right into it today. Let's dive into Coffee Buzz Friday number 3. I appreciate you guys' questions. I got a few more hammered out here from you guys, and I got kind of a list over the last week, but I'm gonna stick in order of how I'm getting them. And I think it's cool. If you guys send more than one, I'll answer them. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna work through these questions unless they ever get massively overwhelming, and I have like 500 questions and multiple people have asked 20 of them. Then I'd probably change. But yeah, let's go with it. Best piece of advice that your old man Jimbo Slice has given you in any way, shape, or form. Great question. So this is from a buddy of mine up in Minnesota, Big Tony Vaca. Best piece of advice that your old man Jimbo Slice. So we used to call my dad Jimbo Slice because of Kimbo Slice back in the day, and oh my gosh, bringing back some memories. Yeah, we had one time my dad was like wrestling us when we were in spring break in college, I believe. This is how I remember Big Jim getting the nickname Jimbo Slice because he was like throwing us in the pools and whatnot or wrestling around with us. And Kimbo Slice was making it big around then. I think he was backyard fighting, cage fighting. And so we went with Jimbo Slice. So that's where Jimbo Slice is coming into grip. So essentially just, yeah, what's the best piece of advice that my dad, frame it in that way, has given me in any way, shape, or form? What is the best piece of advice that my dad has given me? There's a lot that kind of starts funneling through my mind. For those who know my dad, very wise human, longstanding coach, kind of a bloodline of coaching and teaching. If I even throw my grandpa into that mix a little bit, he just like kind of like formed in this coaching vibe. So there's a lot of wisdom, a lot of things that he'd given me growing up for sure. There's a lot of things that come into my mind right away. Like one, for instance, I remember when I was a young kid, I was pretty talented in baseball, and I had to fly to play on this travel team one time. I think I was 10, and they were playing in Atlanta. And the team had called my family and had asked if I would come and play in this tournament with them. And my dad would always ask me if I wanted to do that. That was something that was like big with him when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I always had to call the coaches or the teams that I played for. I always had to call the coach and tell them I wanted to play on the team and whatever, right? It was just like my way of having to talk to coaches. That was big for my dad when I was a kid, is that I would speak to the coaches myself, and he was always on me about that. And so I can't remember exactly how this happened, but I remember I had to go. I was going to fly to Atlanta, and I had to go by myself. And for some reason, now I'm drawing a blank. Maybe I had a layover or something because I feel like it was in Chicago. But I remember I was so nervous because I was going to fly to this team. This adult man was going to pick me up, and I remember, I'm sure I stayed with the coaches or something. That part I'm drawing a blank on. And I went and played baseball. I ended up doing this numerous times from like age 10 to 18. I'd get picked up on teams all the time, and I'd end up having to fly to wherever they were in the country. It was super fun. I used to love doing that, especially when I was in high school, and I would just go play with a team for a week. I think that's helped me a lot as an adult. But anyways, the reason I'm bringing this up is that when I did this, I remember my dad said to me, "You got to kiss your mom, pack your bags, and say goodbye." And that was his lesson as a ball player. If I ever wanted to be a ball player, I would need to kiss my mom, pack my bags, and leave and go play. And that was one of the earliest lessons that I remember. And there's a lot because I ended up sticking with me. He used to say it to me all the way from like age 10 to 26 when I got done playing. It was like a really long standing comment. As I got older, it kind of went from like early wisdom teaching, and it ended up becoming sort of comical to the family, like our inside joke, one of our bits for our family. But yeah, I mean, that was one of the first initial things that comes to my mind when I read that question, because it was something where I had to go be on my own, and I liked baseball. And I think that's the cool thing about sport, right? You can kind of form a bunch of opinion on whether that's good or bad. I think just being able to be 10 years old and leave my family and travel somewhere out of state and put on a different uniform with different people and meet new teammates and play for different coaches and compete without my parents there, I think was it was really difficult, obviously at first, because I was young and that was scary, especially leaving my mom. I was such a mama's boy growing up. And that was one of my dad's pieces of advice to me, was if you wanted to be good at the game, you needed to be able to pack your bags, kiss your mom goodbye, and go play ball. And I think that forms out to a little bit further. I mean, I said that because that was the first thing that popped into my head. But I think one of the greatest, not that that wasn't great advice, but I think the best advice my dad has ever said to me, and it's another thing that he said to me as a young kid all the way until essentially now as well. And he's written me a lot of letters over my lifetime and given me books and written this in a book, or he's written, like I said, he's written me like a card or something and gave it to me or sent it to me wherever I was living in the world. But he said, he would always say, pain is your friend. And it's weird because I think I'd have to ask my dad this, and I know he'll probably hear some of this, so we'll talk about it, because I was just with him recently and he was talking about when I was a young kid, I was afraid of getting hit by the ball in sports. And I think that's maybe where that came from. Pain is your friend, because I remember he was really nervous that I wasn't going to like baseball because I was afraid of getting hit. And now I played up when I was young. I played with older kids, and I was smaller than a lot of the guys. So for me, when I would get hit by these older kids by a pitch, obviously it hurt, but it would scare me. And I do remember not wanting to play. And my dad had brought this up to me recently, that he was afraid I wasn't going to want to play baseball as I got older because of that. But I think that's where that came from. Pain is your friend. But as I got past that, he would say that to me a lot. And he'd say it to me in high school and college, and even as an adult. Obviously, he's always referenced to me the value of pain. And as I've gotten older and matured in my own right and grown in my own right, that advice, I think I've even handed that off to people as well, as a teacher and as a coach. Is just the value in pain and perceiving it as a friendly thing. And I think of all the things that I've done in my life that I've accomplished that have always been the best thing for me. Pain's been involved, whether it's letting go of something, whether it's struggle and hardship and having to go through something that's really difficult, the changing state, changing careers, changing jobs, changing relationships, all that stuff requires pain. And so I think that comment comes out to me a little bit more than kiss your mom, pack your bags, and say goodbye. I think pain is your friend is probably a little bit more deeper. That's probably the adult version to that question. But that's a cool question. That was a good thought process for me and my family. So gavel stick, engaged, and that would be my final answer. My dad told me at a young age that pain is your friend, and it stuck with me. It stuck with me forever. Let's go next question. So this next question, discuss the line between confident and cocky. Hold on, sorry, I kind of getting these mixed up. I didn't organize these well. Yeah, I got a few in front of me. We'll go with that one. Discuss the line between confident and cocky. Discuss the line between confident and cocky. I think this is similar to anything that I talk a lot and think about a lot in general, right? Because everything in the world is mapped out through duality. So you have yin yang, night day, west east, north south, right? You have duality to all things. And so in order to be confident, I'm going to put that in the framework of cocky as the dualism to confident. So it's really like being anxious or excited. If I'm anxious about something, well, the biological processing of that could be the same. Somebody else could have that same level of energy, same heart rate, same respiratory rate, same feeling, and they perceive that feeling as excitement. And so it's kind of similar. If I'm talking about this from like a neurological or biological system, I would imagine confident and cocky as a feeling, like the actual feeling of those things are probably the same. I just think they're just, it has everything to do with ego and awareness. And I think your ego is attached to the cocky side. I would imagine that's easily understood. I would imagine your essence, your awareness to yourself, your true essence is more confident. And I think that sometimes, just like all duality, I don't want to put cocky in the bucket of has to be bad. Like that doesn't have to be a bad sentiment, because that could be relevant to the phrase fake it until you make it, and being able to fake things and fake behavioral flaws. Maybe sometimes I'm not as confident as I'd like to be in a situation. So maintaining a level of cockiness slightly may benefit me in the moment. Sustaining cockiness would hurt me, but maybe the drop of a microdose of cockiness could actually help me in a moment that I'm not feeling that confident. And I think that's the same thing with anxiety, because anxiety at a microdose is really healthy. At a macrodose, when anxiety becomes chronic, obviously that turns itself into a lot of negatives and can really disrupt us in a healthy aspect. But I think that could be the same thing for excitement. You could have you could be a chronic adrenaline junkie because you're addicted to excitement, and that could hurt you. And that's the same thing that could even phrase that into confidence, because confidence could be I could see confidence being easily explored as an actuality, or a non-negotiable of consistency. You would always want to be confident. But I think that, and it's funny because I saw the question that was after this, which is about humility. So maybe this is tied into it. Chad Notkel, so I'm going to give him some love because he asked a lot. He asked the same questions. We'll just rip on these ones for today. But going back to that, I think if you're always confident, you don't experience times where you're not confident, then you don't experience some humility, right? And so there's some times where I don't think we want to be confident. Now, obviously, I know it sounds counterproductive or counterintuitive, but I don't think we're going to be confident on all things. And a lot of this has to do with decision making. Sometimes we have to make decisions and we're not always right. We're not always going to be right. And so we're not always going to be extremely confident. I think it's just being confident in your essence is the key there, is being comfortable with being confident or not confident. And ultimately, maybe sometimes you have to use a dose of cockiness to fake something or to get through something. But being even aware of being cocky, I would say, is a level of confidence. So if I can go back to, as my brain's starting to form my final answer, discuss the line between confident and cocky, that would be my final answer around the line. Is that the line, it's really going to be difficult if you don't have an awareness to the line and knowing that there is a line. And so your attention span or your behavior can very easily get wrapped into cocky as ego. You become entirely wrapped in ego, and cocky becomes the result of a sustained ego. And the ego, Carl Jung says it best, we spend our first part of our life building our ego and the back half of our life destroying the ego. And the ego is largely, it comes from adolescent to young teenage years into early adulthood, because most of life is external. And so most of our external achievement, our success, is praised by people like parents and family and friends and teachers and coaches. And we're compared. If we play sports, you're compared regularly and ranked regularly as you go up. So why wouldn't you naturally develop some sort of egotistical state? I think that's positive, but you would naturally develop some sort of egotistical state to achieve external things. I could very easily see that creating a chronic behavior of cockiness, and that will inevitably hurt you. There's nothing favorable or attractive, in my opinion, of an adult male or female who is married to being cocky and is unaware of themselves. Largely, they're not connected to themselves internally. They're so externally driven, and I think that happens a lot materially. Consumerism is a big topic in that scenario, but materialism is a big topic in that scenario. And I think largely a lot of that material can pull you into a lack of awareness of yourself and keep you in cockiness, and that would be not becoming aware of the line. I think the line between the two is pursuing confidence as a general moral. I think that's a healthy pursuit, to pursue confidence and becoming yourself. And I think that makes you aware of yourself. And as you're aware of yourself, you can become confident, because even not feeling confident, I think, is a form of confidence. And then trickling in that cockiness and micro adaptations to use them in places. And I think that would be my answer. That was long. Sorry. Gavel on myself. Oh, wow. Where's the humble one? Yes, there. So this will be the second part to that question. When was the last time that you were humbled? One of the things that I feel like I was massively humbled was in 2022, one of my most humbling professional experiences of my life. And because of time and out of respect for Coffee Buzz Friday, and we all get into the weekend here, I'll just share the cliff notes of it. Essentially, I was cocky. I was in Major League Baseball. I was running a company in 2021. The Giants became a client of mine, and they offered me a deal. They made me a full-time coach, and I was able to be a full-time coach in the big leagues, and I was really excited to do that. I was really young. I didn't have time in the minor leagues, and I don't know how I would have not felt cocky to that, but I felt cocky to that. And a lot of times being cocky is what cocky in moments, go back to those micro moments where I needed to be cocky to hold myself accountable in rooms or keep moving forward or to get to the next checkpoint. I needed to be cocky sometimes. And even when there were times where I didn't feel confident, I had to kind of fake it till I made it. And I got into a position where I now have this job that I had long desired for many years. Obviously, I wanted to be there as a player, but I spent a significant amount of years desiring to be a coach. And I have it. And when I became full-time, I tried to change, like I said, without telling the whole story, I tried to change a few of these systems that were in place. And the backlash that I got was something I could not have expected or prepared for. And I just thought it was going to run so seamlessly because I had been crushing it year after year after year. And I really wasn't running into much resistance professionally or anything that I was doing teaching wise. And so all of a sudden I run into this massive resistance in 2022. And one of the things is, I've talked a little bit about this, is I wasn't like drunk the night before, but I had had a few glasses of wine and I was slightly hungover at work the next day. And I was like too slow to process all the stuff that I needed to process. And I wasn't able to make the decisions that I wanted to be making. And I really dropped the ball. I mean, a lot of people I don't think would know this, or even who were a part of this day would have thought twice about it, but I did for sure. And I was too slow in my mind to process. I wasn't in a position where I was confident or even able to fake being cocky. And it was such an experience where I had to essentially surrender to the moment and readjust and reassess who I was and what I was doing and where I was at and who I was coaching and how I was talking to people, how I was navigating hierarchy, structure, all this stuff. It like a lot of my like steam of success that I was having came crashing down. And that had a lot to do with why I stopped drinking. I didn't drink the 2023 season or the 2024 season purely because I didn't want to find myself in a position where I was slow of thought or ever get blindsided by a scenario that I wasn't prepared for or ready for. And it was a very humbling experience. It was very uncomfortable. And I remember when I look at it, even when I was getting humbled, most of the humility didn't come the day of or the weeks to follow. It didn't come for about another month or two until I got into the off season. I could really digest what happened. And because when I first dropped the ball, I was so reactionary for like the next week or two, and I wasn't able to receive feedback. I wasn't able to listen to other people. I wasn't able to talk to other people. Everything I was doing was about venting. I just got so emotional. And as it slowed down months later, and now years later, as I really study it, it ended up, obviously, back to my dad's advice, pain is your friend. It ended up being one of the best things that ever happened to me ever professionally. And it definitely made me a more here we go to the second question. It made me a way more confident person. And it made me stand up for myself a lot more and understand who I am and what I can offer and things that I can't do and things that I can't offer. And I kind of found a line between that. And yeah, I guess now as I've full circled the entire coffee buzz, it really brought me to a better place mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. But I remember that one day it was such a loss that it just like, it took me out of this thing where I felt invincible, which I've been feeling invincible. And I knew that I found out that I wasn't invincible. And I think that has a lot to do with humility. What is that line in the Bible? The meek will inherit the earth. And I think a lot of the line, the verse, I'm drawing a blank on where that verse is in the Bible, but I know that's in the Bible. The meek will inherit the earth. It's largely because of the processing of people who are humble will inherit the earth. They'll inherit everything. They'll come out standing out on top. And so I think that simplifying our lives and going through life, I'm going to tie all this together. I'm going to try. Going through life knowing that pain is your friend. Here we go. Going through life knowing that pain is your friend. Excuse me. So much of what we're going to do naturally because of human behavior is pursue external rewards egotistically. And that comes in so many forms. That comes in chasing a relationship, finding a partner, and those fail. That comes in finding jobs, and those fail. That comes in your sport and your businesses and your education. And we fail so much. So as we fail, we experience pain. And I think the failure of the pain, it takes you away from cockiness naturally because it forces you to go inward because you failed externally. And as you fail externally and you process it inward, you become humble. You create more humility in yourself. And then that humility forms a sense of awareness to the line between cocky and confident. And the only way to find the line of cocky and confident is through pain. And therefore, the friend of our pain is our awareness. So if I attach my dad's lessons to Chad's questions and Tony's questions too, sorry, don't want to let Tony fail on that side. I would say that life is suffering, life is painful. The friend aspect of my dad's advice is awareness. So pain is awareness. I'm going to shape that like that. And to pursue anything in life, largely you have to go externally into the world and try. And you're already so bad at everything that you do. All of us are. We're just not good at things. And so in order to become confident in things that we're bad at, we have to try, which means we're going to fail, which is going to be painful. And as we try things, typically the thing that sparks our momentum or gets us going on the movement, on the action, is a level of cockiness, the ego. And so the ego drives initial steps. And as you fail and experience pain, awareness takes you deeper within yourself, where you become confident in who you are, your essence. And naturally you start to exist in a reality where you are aware of your awareness as you are hopefully pursuing humble endeavors with a degree of confidence, knowing that this whole thing is going to be painful. And something about all of that mixture, that recipe, throw it into the pot, is the point of life and the point of Coffee Buzz Friday. Gavel stick. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate it, dude. You're a good man. Hope to see you around. Chad, thanks for the questions. Tony, thanks for the questions. Dad, thanks for the lessons. All right, love you guys. Happy Friday.